believe we're now live streaming.
Okay, well, afternoon, members. Good to see you all. You will have had the pack circulated to you for the Constitution Working Group meeting. So should we go straight into the item 1, Gemma, which is apologies for absence?
I've not received any apologies today.
Okay, note that Connor is yet to join us, Councillor McConville, so we'll chase that as we start the meeting. So item 2, any declarations of interest? No, I can't see anyone indicating, so thank you, members. The minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 2nd of August, they should be in the pack. Can we take them as an accurate record of the meeting?
Suppose it was accurate record, yes.
Thank you, Paul.
Agreed.
Thank you, and thank you, members, for agreeing that. Thank you.
Great.
And so that's proposed by Councillor Thomas, seconded by Councillor Martin, and all agreed. And then item 3, which is on our agenda. No, looking at the wrong one. Item 4, sorry, is a debrief for issues arising from the members' briefing held on the 28th of August. So we've captured in there I think 3 of the main issues that we could recall. Very happy under this item, members, to talk about other things. Delighted to say, and hopefully he's well known to you all, but we've invited Steve Weekly to join us. Where are you, Steve? There you are. Because there was a comment made about the report it function and about making sure that there was better communication back for users of Report It, and particularly if members are going to be using it for and signposting, as I know you always do now anyway, but using it for any issues that have been raised with you as casework. So it's an opportunity, I think, really, while we have Steve here. Steve, do you want to say a little bit about what you've currently got in hand following that feedback from members? And then if there are any points that members want to add, we'll pick those up, Steve, sort of real time. So, Steve, over to you. Can't hear you, Steve, for some reason.
No.
Still nothing.
How's that now? You
Oh,
got me now?
Well done.
Okay, sorted. Handy when you work in IT.
It is. That would have been embarrassing, Steve.
It would have been. I'd never have lived that one down. So I was saying thank you, Susan, and thank you for inviting me along. Yeah, I had some feedback following the report it function and sort of information to, from, etc. So in a nutshell, the report it function, a lot of it goes through the My Account. And the main reason for that is that a customer, once they log it, they can log back into their My Account and see the progress of where it's getting to. So initially it shows a new case being raised. There from there it's showing progress, and then from there it will also show as completed once the work's been completed as well. And the thinking behind it as well is when an officer picks up a piece of work, they can also send an email to the customer directly from Salesforce to the customer, and when they reply, it goes back into the Salesforce case as well. So that's a communication process for what we've had in for quite a couple of years now. There was a question raised about members actually being able to chase on a customer's behalf. We've had a look at this, and we think probably the easiest way to do this is with another online form, basically. What I'm developing at the moment in the background, just to make you aware as well, is an intranet for members, where you can have all your information pertinent to yourselves in one place. I've got a meeting with Gary this week, and I'm going to show him the final version of it. We've had input from the leads of different service areas, and Gemma's been involved in it as well. So we're looking to launch that soon. So on the intranet, there'll be a chase form, for want of a better word, basically. And the thinking behind it is that once the member's spoken to one of the residents who's got a problem, etc., hopefully the resident would have logged it in the first place in the correct way anyway. So they should be able to give the member a reference number of some sort. So we'll be asking for that on the form, which will make it easy for us to track when it comes in. Really simple form. The next box down basically is going to be detailed. So what the information is you need and what sort of output you expect from an inquiry from the member, and also which chief officer that needs to go to. So it'd just be a list of the chief officers. You select the one you want, and that will automatically then send an email to the correct chief officer for them to pick up for their relevant service area to sort that inquiry out for you. So it's a very, very simple process, but it gives you a way of doing it as well. There was another question as well, if members wanted to raise report it on behalf of their residents, basically. And the way you can do that is you can set up a My account using your FHDC email address and just attach it to the Civic Centre, and that would then give you a log of all the cases you raised as well. So it's another way for you to raise on behalf of the resident rather than chasing. So there's two avenues we're trying to address at the moment.
Can I just ask? Sorry. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Tim. So, but if you set up a new account, surely you've got to put in your own reference.
Is this for you on behalf of the resident?
Well, yeah. I mean, when you're setting up your own account,
Yes.
you've got to put in your council tax number, basically. I think, if I remember rightly.
Right.
So,
No, that's a different stage. Council Holdings B. For the basic My account, all you need is an email address.
Okay.
And that becomes your username.
Right. Okay.
And because councillors don't use Salesforce on a day-to-day basis, you can use your FHDC email address, and that'll be fine. Officers within the council get a conflict on it, and they can't do it. So, but because you're an FHDC member, you can use your Council Holdings B.
Yeah. Okay.
And then once that's in, you can then raise a case and go through the report it function like one of your residents would. So it's reporting fly tipping, or the only thing you can't report, the only caveat around that would be missed bins, because that is linked to the property address, but everything else gives you the ability to put the location in. But missed bins is linked to the individual. It's called a UPRN, so it's a unique property reference.
Yeah.
So for missed bins, you have to do that as a resident, really.
Thank you very much.
Let me go. I'm sorry, I'm put myself on mute, and I can't. So I think to Steve, it was Tim next, and then we go to Councillor Thomas Paul. So Tim.
Okay, then go to Councillor Thomas Paul after me.
I never know whether to be formal or informal with you all these days.
I think Paul will probably deal with Paul in the same way I deal with him. A few things, Steve. Firstly, so we'd said that I think some of the issues raised were around, I said, using My account to report. You've given us a route to do that. Not convinced, because I'm a little bit worried we're going to get caught. Literally, you just flagged that one of those issues is the bins.
Yes.
And that's attached to UPRN. And I sense that as we get further integrations going in and better reporting and better linking to cases, that's going to increase as we go forward. I do wonder if it would be better instead of that for councillors that you could set up and say that they can, or some way of adding that you are proxying this request. Any resident could do that. I could be reporting it on, a problem on behalf of my granny. I mean, in my case, that would be difficult because she's been dead 25 years and hasn't got much to complain about anymore. But it might be that you're reporting it on behalf of somebody else or a neighbour or something else, and therefore it would be a helpful function in general, not just for councillors to say, I am Tim, but I'm reporting this on behalf of this person at this address. I think it might be better to do that through one account rather than coming up with a workaround, which is a clever workaround, but it's still a workaround of setting up a second account to do a different thing. So I'm not totally sold on that. The second thing is just to say that I don't know if other people are seeing it, but the my account isn't really updating statuses beyond in progress very much these moment. In the last month or so, I've still got lots of things which are in progress. Cases aren't being closed and notifications aren't coming out saying that's been fixed. It's done and that's closed. It's done that I can see. And I'm worried that there's a data flow stall. Generally, it's Veolia problems because most of your problems are Veolia problems. And I don't know that you're getting an accurate feedback to you that the things have been fixed and therefore the system isn't flagging them as fixed and therefore an email's not going back out to the resident, let alone the councillor, to say it's been done. And that's not right. So yeah, that's my 2 parts. It's a good workaround. I'm not sure it's the right one. And I don't think that my account is currently closing cases down and reporting back to people, councillor or otherwise, at the moment.
Okay, I'll take your second point first, Tim. It is working. I would say there's an issue I need to address then potentially and pick up. If they're mostly Dover Waste ones, pick up with Dover Waste, because it does rely on the officer actually carrying it through the process and closing the case down. So if they're doing the work and not physically closing the case down within Salesforce, then there'll never be a notification go out at all. So I'll take that away and I'll have a with Dover Waste to make sure they are closing the calls down. And I can put a reminder out
Happy
generally.
to talk you through my cases if that helps.
Yes, please. Yeah.
I'm sure you can log into my account and see them anyway. You'll see that I've got a lot of them in progress, despite the fact that they are actually done.
Okay, Tim, if you have me to sort of log into your area and in Salesforce, I'll have a look and see what's in there. I'll take that on board. I'll have a look and see what's going on for you, and I'll report directly back to you on that one. The first one is potentially, yeah, the complication we really get is with the missed bins. The other ones we could have a form for you to actually complete on behalf of a resident for fly tipping, etc. They're quite easy because it doesn't rely on that UPRN. With the missed bins.
How about if you've got someone with a council tax inquiry?
With a council tax inquiry, if it's a general inquiry, we could put one in. That's not difficult.
If it's my neighbour has got a 25, lives alone but isn't receiving their discount, and I was reporting that would currently be linked to my council tax account if I put it through my account, wouldn't it?
No. And the reason it wouldn't, within the My account, you've got a second phase that we've then got like a single sign-on. So once you register first time, it becomes single sign-on. So the second phase for the council tax is if you want to view your bills, your statements, your payments, and everything else, you get a lot more information. But the initial stage for getting to all the forms and everything, you can get just via the My account. It's only if you register again to that next level where you've got to put your account reference in to get all the information that pulls back.
Okay, understood. I still think the ability to report an issue on behalf of somebody else is a better route than having a second account to report for councillors to report issues on behalf of somebody else.
Okay, I'll go back to drawing board.
I would have thought the ability to add I'm reporting this on behalf of tick box, which opens up a second contact detail, might be plausible.
Yep, that's fine. I could certainly look at that for you. And again, that's potentially we could have a set of forms for members on your intranet that the general public don't see as well. So, but do the same thing basically. So I can certainly take that away, Tim, and have a look at that and see how quickly we can turn that around for you.
Okay, thanks very much, Steve. Right, now back to Paul.
Yeah, thank you very much, Susan. So 2 things. The first, the positive. It's really good to see the number of people who are logged on and have My accounts now. So that helps the reporting process in the first place, doesn't it? And I think that's fantastic. But it now means we've got this relatively small group of people that we now need to help to get to My account so they can use the reported tool. Secondly, when we discussed this with the wider membership, I also thought that we talked about reviewing some of the categories that were within the reported tool as well. And I didn't know if that was part and parcel of what we're going to be doing as part of this, or whether that's going to be a separate piece of work, Steve. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Category wise, can you expand on that for me?
And sorry, yes, you're absolutely right, Paul. We did. When I gave the presentation, Steve, we highlighted that there were about, I think from memory, 33 different categories, reported categories. And some of the and the feedback from members at the working group, the briefing, was that some of those, they might have casework where it doesn't naturally just fall into one or t'other, and there may need to be a new report it function that perhaps has either a broader remit or multiple issues, or isn't so easily targeted. So that, I think, Paul, was the essence of what you're referring to. So I just
that's correct.
Is that right? That's right. So I just wonder, Steve, whether there's almost like a none of the above type report it, which I'm sure there's a better way of phrasing it, but
yeah, more of a general inquiry. Doesn't fit one of the prescribed ones we've got at the moment. Yeah, certainly. That's an easy, quick fix.
Yeah, do you think we can just try and look at that then, Steve, and then let's keep that under review? Because again, one of the other comments from members was around, the analysis that we can do or we will do of the report it function and what comes forward, just so that, from management action, it's important because we can then see, well, where's the volume, what are the nature of the inquiries? And I think we should also do that for the broader sort of miscellaneous almost, or any other report issues.
Certainly.
And then we can refine as we go.
Certainly. I can certainly put some work around that. That's not a problem, Susan.
Does that address your query, Paul? You happy with that?
Yeah, it does, Susan. Again, I think it was the fact that when people were looking at the categories and they look at the casework that they have, it is difficult to align some of those some of that casework with the categories that were available. So yeah, that's pretty much how that came.
Okay.
Is that just for members, Susan, or is that for general public as well?
Well, I would test it for members first.
Okay.
Because members know where that's come from, and we can work with members to make it better. If we open it up and then take it away, and it becomes a bit more complicated. So let's try and, as members have asked us, let's try and respond to them. Let's test it with them and refine as we go, Steve. That's all right.
No worries. That's fine.
Okay, any other comments about report it and functionality? Anything? Nope. Okay. Then the next bullet point we had in terms of debrief.
Sorry, I was just going to very quickly say, Steve mentioned that he was looking at getting that dashboard and the intranet ready. Did we have a timeline on that? That was literally, when do you think we might see something on that, Steve?
It's ready to go. I can share that with you straight after this meeting if you want to have a look at it, Tim. I've got a meeting with Gary week after next, I believe, my portfolio meeting, but more than happy to share what we've built so far for your feedback before we go live with it.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, just make sure your portfolio holder's briefed, will you?
He's literally sat there.
Good.
I'll let him know.
Just to show that we do respect the positions that members hold. Right, okay. If we don't
Sorry.
No comment, Jenny.
Tongue in cheek, that was.
Okay, so the next bullet point we put on the agenda, and I think I'm going to ask Gemma to talk to this one, Gemma, which is, because she's done all the work on it, which is about a proposal from the Centre for Scrutiny. Gemma, can you pick this up from here?
Sure, yes. So members will remember at the last meeting, the working group meeting, we talked about having question time at committees. So I had a go at drafting some sort of procedure rules around how we might do that, what would work in terms of...
Sorry, Gemma, I think you're talking about the next item. I was talking about how on the agenda, sorry to cut you off, but just so keep us all together.
Yes.
Sorry, it was about how to do scrutiny in a committee system.
Yep, absolutely. So at the last members briefing, members did ask about how scrutiny would work in a committee system. And so some of you from before the elections last time will remember we worked with the Centre for Governance and Scrutiny on a number of issues to try and improve the way that we did scrutiny at the time. So the suggestion was that we get them involved and we perhaps invite them to talk to members about how it might work going forward. And as you can see within the pack, there is a proposal from them to deliver some training for us. So I really just wanted to get members' thoughts on this and see if you think it might help members' understanding.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Gemma, for reminding us and pointing it out in the pack. So there's a proposal, members. We've got budget available. It looks good to me, but obviously really clear to get your endorsement or support for that. Views?
It's within the budget that we've already set and can be made to fit within that. Then absolutely the better that we can help people use the system to do what they want and to get their screening examples out and things like that. And I genuinely don't believe that there's going to be a problem in terms of doing that and having scrutiny and scrutiny presentations to council and indeed committees as things arise. I don't see that there's any reason why we can't do those things, and I'm sure that that's what the training will reinforce as well. Just explain the new way of doing that and the new way of working on it.
Okay.
So yes, go for it.
Okay, thank you for your support, Tim. I'm going to come to Jim in a minute, but just to welcome Connor to the meeting. We're on the item, I think it's number 4, Connor, just going through a debrief from the members' briefing. Jim.
Yeah, just really to reinforce what Tim says, it's within budget. It can only be helpful. So I think we should get on and do it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm getting support from members.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Gemma, for doing that. You pulled something forward that I think is going to be really helpful. So, just finishing off that item on the agenda, the third bullet point we had was member lead roles, and this is really just, I think, as we get into this final last push, members, which is going to be the final last push to get us over the line on all these things and to have a fabulous session, training sessions, and we elegantly and beautifully move into a committee system. It was just to make sure that is there anything else left to be said on this before we finally try and get the right words in the right place on the right bits of paper. If not, I'm going to quickly move on and take that as a win. So, yes, I've got a thumbs up from the leader. So unless any other member wants
Can I just ask, sorry, I'm not sure whether this is the right place or because I missed the last meeting. I just wanted to check in terms of chairing committees, how many committees can one chair? Is there any limit on that? And is there any limit on who that might be? I mean, politically balanced, of course. And then I was just thinking to myself, and again, it's probably just needs confirmation. The subcommittees, do they actually make a decision? Does that have to be ratified by the main committee? Or is it just reported to the main committee? Now, I'm not sure whether this is the right place to bring that up, but that's a couple of things that I was quite interested in.
Well, I think, no, it's happy to have that, have those questions, Jenny, at any point. I'm going to just look to, I think, David Amandeep for your views on those. I can give you a non-legal view, but as we've got a few lawyers with us, I'll defer to them.
Thanks, Susan. Yeah. So in terms of is there a restriction in terms of how many committees you can chair? No. In law, of course, there could be something set out in the Constitution which restricts it, but there isn't presently. In terms of restrictions around who can be a chair, there is not necessarily arising in law, but where there's a potential conflict between a role on one committee and a role on another committee, then you would avoid having those people on those committees. So, of course, the Strategy and Resources Committee, if something's been reviewed by audit and governance in relation to, financial matters, etc., that's gone through there, you would want some separation. So it's just been mindful of that. But in law, again, no restriction in the committee system around who can be a chair, as long as you're an elected member and you are appointed appropriately. The other question, which I've forgotten, apologies.
No, it's just that if a subcommittee makes a decision, is it a decision or a recommendation? And is that then ratified by the main committee, or is it just reported to the main committee?
Okay, the subcommittees would have appropriate delegated powers to take decisions. They wouldn't be making recommendations or you know, propose. Well, in most instances, there may be some where the subcommittee is required or requested to look at something and to make a recommendation to the parent committee, but that would be the exception. So those subcommittees would have their own decision-making powers, and yes, you could have a system whereby those decisions are then reported back up to the parent committee, but it would operate as a proper decision-making committee.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
So that's helpful, David. So just to keep me on the same page then on this, in terms of the appointment of the chairs to the subcommittees, I think we discussed, haven't we? But let's just make sure I'm on the same page. That would be done at the AGM following nominations and proposals and those being seconded. Have I recalled that correctly, David?
That's my recollection, yes.
Okay,
that
so
it would all be dealt with there.
So that's all dealt with at the AGM for the chairs of all the committees and subcommittees. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Would that work in a system that I have seen previously, whereby effectively at the AGM you elect the committee and then you go into they go into committee and the committee elects the chair and the chair and the vice chair, and then you come back, or the chair, and then you come back out of that committee and then spin into the next committee? Is that the...
No, I think it was going to be more straightforward than that, Tim. I think it was a case of we take the
council electing. So you're going to have the council electing the chair of the committee, or the committee electing the chair of the committee?
The council, a bit like we do at AGM, where we do the chairs and vice chairs at the AGM, don't we? For things like for some of the main committees. My understanding was that, well, that's what we discussed and proposed, David. Is that right?
Yeah, again, that was my understanding. Yeah. I mean, technically, Tim, you could do it that way, but it would get very complicated potentially very quickly, and quite time consuming, I suspect. But the cleanest way to do it and the most straightforward way of doing it is to have it all dealt with at the AGM.
Yeah, no, it is dealt with at the AGM. It's just you say, okay, these 12 people are nominated to this committee. Can those 12 people stand up? Can those 12 people are then elect the chair and then move on? However, I'm relaxed on that. I'm quite happy for the AGM to set who they are. It's something that one can come back to later in life if necessary. It's a potential subsequent change, but I don't have a hugely firm view on which way around it is. I just want to be clear on it.
Okay, we will be clear. Sorry, Jenny, do you want to come in? Because I know Connor wants to come in.
Sorry, no, not. I was just going to go back to my report or my issue with subcommittees. I mean, I would like to see if decisions are made in the subcommittee that they are actually reported. I mean, the decisions obviously have been made, but I would like to see an item on the agenda of the main committee of those decisions. Everybody's gone quiet.
There could be a standing item on a committee agenda of the minutes of any subcommittees, so that it at least goes past the nose on the agenda. I don't think that there's any advantage hugely in reading them out, but it would at least be useful for the scrutiny subcommittee to know that there's been X many shareholders meetings and X many personnel meetings, so that it does make them go and read the minutes. So I don't see that a standing agenda item of those committee meetings would cause any huge pain. Susan's staring into the middle distance as if this would cause more pain.
No. I'm just trying to because we haven't yet worked out the sequencing of some of the and the frequency of some of the committees. And sorry, I haven't had a chance to think it through, but some committees might meet more regularly than perhaps their parent committee because of necessity in a particular point in time. I don't know, for example, housing.
So it would just report that there have been three of those.
Yes.
Three sets of minutes since the last one.
Yes.
So since the last one.
So if it's something as straightforward as that, that's not a problem. But if it's a case
I don't want anything too difficult, but I just think, we're talking about transparency all the time and communication with the general public. We need to make sure that those decisions are because the subcommittee is a subcommittee of a main committee. So the main committee should be aware of what's of what's taking place.
I mean, to be honest,
that's my view.
And I absolutely take that principle, Jenny. I think we're such a small council with 30 members. I would hope all council are aware of all the decisions that we made, and maybe that's an idealistic view. But anyway, that's aspiration. We will take your point, and we'll see what we can do. I'm sure David and Amandeep have heard that. Right, now I think I've got Connor and then Paul.
Thanks. Yeah, just coming back to the chairs, etc. I mean, personally, I think it just work much better just to carry on as we have, as we have previously, where we sort of have, the nominations for who's going to be on the committee, as well as the chairs and vice chairs. I mean, at the AGM, ideally, if they're agreed on block, fine, but obviously at the AGM, people would have the opportunity to propose and second, alternative ones, just because ideally you'd have them all in there, but there's nothing there shouldn't be anything to stop you sort of proposing on the night. But yeah, rather than do it, rather than just appoint the members and then go to the committees, and then the first item of that committee is, I know we do it for overview and scrutiny, but then that was slightly different in terms of you shouldn't have the political majority of the council just determining that committee. But under this new system, with the political balance, I think it should work. I mean, and obviously if there are issues, then again, it could be something that could be looked at in a review. But I think just for the sense of keeping things as streamlined as possible, as we're used to, I think for the next AGM, then that's what would be best. And then, yeah, just to address Jenny's point, I mean, I assume as we currently do, so with our current subcommittees like licensing and finance, they don't receive their own minutes. Their minutes go automatically to the next meeting of the sort of the parent committee. So yeah, so that should always, I would imagine that would still be the case moving forward with the various subcommittees that we're creating. All their minutes would go back to the main committee when they next meet after that meeting. So, which is what happens now.
Thank you. And we have said as a principle, we'll try and keep where we run committees. We'll try and keep as close to what we currently do, because that's got a level of familiarity for us all. And as members have said, if we need to make tweaks as we go after the first year or so, then I'm really happy to do so. Paul, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just one point of clarification, if I may. Just in terms of the table there in 3.1, we haven't specified that the leader, for example, would be the chair of strategy and resources, and the vice chair would be the deputy leader. I can't remember where we left that in our previous discussions, whether we said we would allow that to be decided within the council, or we'd actually specify it here. It's just clarification, really. Thank you.
I'm happy to come in there if it helps. Yeah, there is a specification there will be a specification, and there is in fact in the draft constitution presently, which says that the leader will be the chair of strategy and resources, and the deputy leader will be the vice chair of strategy and resources. And of course, they will have attaching to their roles different responsibilities. So vice chair, deputy leader would be focusing on finance, and then the leader would be strategy side of things. If that helps.
Yeah, thank you. It's just it was missing from there. I knew we had discussed it. We said that's what we're going to do. I couldn't remember where it was. Thank you, David.
Just to flag on that, the minutes that we agreed, that wasn't quite what it said. What David has just said is my recollection of it and what I believe was going to happen, and where I think that where we were going. But the Constitution first draft, where it says there was a drafting error in respect to the leader being the chair of S&R, and they should have stated that the deputy leader would be chair of S&R. That is definitely not what we agreed. It was that the leader would be the chair of S&R, and the deputy leader would be the deputy chair of S&R.
It was, and if I may, just again to make sure we're all on the same page, but we did have a discussion, of course. Well, the Constitution is written to give us some sort of longevity, and actually the deputy leader may want to chair a different tier 1 committee, but we didn't want to specify that in the constitution at this stage, so there'd be flexibility as we went along. I think that was the right recollection. Otherwise, I'm sure Councillor Prater will correct me.
I think the way it's currently drafted is that leader chairs and deputy leader, vice chairs that committee, because at this stage that just makes it clear.
At this stage, yeah.
It's very it makes it very clear what we're doing and what you're electing and what job that those people will end up doing. Yeah. Yes, if in future we wanted to discuss the ability to move it around, it just when you try and sequence your elections during the course of the AGM, if the deputy leader is then separated from the chair, it becomes quite exciting as to how that works. And indeed, you could end up with a deputy leader being elected who's then not the chair of anything, because the councillors could be awkward buggers, leading you to an even more exciting constitutional position.
Okay, well, we'll leave that excitement for hopefully a day that I don't see, but anyway. So however, I'm taking the spirit that it's meant. Hopefully the drafting will be clear and reflect what members want. So coming back to the pack, just because I'm conscious we've got quite a lot more to get through with you members, that I think addresses the item 4, which was about a debrief on the matters arising from the briefing on the 28th of August. So if everyone is happy, can we go into item 5, which is proposals for question times at committee? Now, this was something that you asked us to look at, and I think Amandeep, you're going to talk to this item, please.
Yes, very happy to talk to this item, afternoon councillors and officers. So as Susan has said, starting on page 17 of your pack, you will see some proposals that we've put together, which hopefully reflect the discussions, some of the discussions that we've had at the working group meetings already. So what we're proposing is that members of the public can, of course, continue to ask questions at full council, but also strategy and resources and the community and environment committee. Just some housekeeping points. Questions will be asked in the order that they are received. Chair can group similar questions together. Obviously, notice needs to be given if you wish to ask a question, and at the moment we are suggesting that it should be 3 clear working days before the date of the meeting, and the person submitting the question should give their name. Each question must give the name and address of the questioner and also who they're directing the question to. In terms of number of meetings, we are proposing that at any one meeting, no person may submit more than 1 question. Scope of the questions, again, that's in the pack. I won't read it out, but it's very similar to what we have at the moment when submitting questions to full council. Obviously, if a question is rejected, then the person submitting the question will be notified. Again, similar to what we've got at the moment, the person submitting the question is expected to attend the council meeting in order to submit their question, can ask a supplementary question. Again, very similar to full council. Written answers will be provided if we're unable to answer the question during the meeting. And then time limits, public question times under these procedural rules shall be limited to 3 questions per agenda item. So that is on page 18. So I'm hoping, members, that this reflects some of the earlier discussions we've had. Obviously, very happy to take any suggestions from you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Amandeep. So, members, any questions for Amandeep? Right. I think Paul, you just pipped him. I think you got him first.
Oh,
No,
thank you, Susan. Well, there you go. Pipped at the post. Yeah. So my question relates to the timing of all of this. If you look at the timing in terms of saying that we need to have the questions 3 clear working days before the meeting, and the questions have to be related to an agenda item, which means that if the agenda only goes out 2 days before that, it leaves members of the public very little time to assimilate and then ask a question about the agenda. That's all. But that's the intention, isn't it? You know, it's to keep it tight and to keep it tight to the agenda. So it's just recognizing that you know, we might well end up having to make sure that people realize that that's the timescales. Because I know people get frustrated at the moment, for example, when they come to planning and they have 3 minutes to deliver their question. So again, it's just making sure that we get that information out there and people recognize the importance of looking at the agenda and then getting the questions in to us in a timely manner, so that we can actually provide them with the kind of response and the quality of response they're looking for. So it's just the timing of it, that's all.
And the accuracy of the communication to the broader interested observers or residents.
That's correct, yes, thank
potential
you.
questioners. Yeah, absolutely.
You.
No, point well made. Absolutely. We'll just reflect on that further about how we do that, Paul. Tim.
Well, the slightly pipped Tim. A number of things here. Firstly, it's really good to see that we're doing this. So thank you for this piece of work. Something I really wanted to see, and it's great to see it. Secondly, on Paul's point, I do wonder if 2 working days would not be unreasonable, because that's by 10 o'clock on the Friday for a Wednesday meeting. It would give 1 more day. In practice, that would give 1 more day for people to read stuff and to get a question in. And yet still mean that we've got the question out, you know, we physically got the question by the Friday, so it allows officers and the appropriate chair to deal with have an answer ready by the Wednesday evening. So I think that would 1 day better in terms of Paul's point at that stage. It doesn't give everything. I have a question on 8.7 where it says the chair may ask the question on the questioner's behalf. Fine. Indicate that a written reply will be given, or decide in the absence of the questioner that a question will not be dealt with. What that doesn't say is indicate that an actual reply will be given. I'm assuming that if the chair puts the question, then somebody might well then give a real answer in real time, and or a written reply might be given, and or the chair might decide that the question is not going to be dealt with. But actually answering the question is one of those options, and 8.7 doesn't suggest that. Also, there isn't an 8.6, and I'm deeply curious as to what 8.6 isn't. What have we excised from this, and was it good?
Can't tell you. Maybe Amity will be able to elaborate.
Yeah, Councillor Prater, I think this is just our numbering, which is out of sync. So I don't think there's an 8.6, so to speak, that's missing. But of course, I will double check. Thank you.
Okay, as I said, I think the more substantive one was on 8.7 is that there's a further option in there, which is that the chair reads the question and an answer is given to it at the meeting. It's not explicit that can happen under that at the moment. It suggests that if the chair asks the question, that only a written answer will be given, or the chair will decide that no answer will be given. And I think that the third option of somebody actually answers it, because it's on camera, there's people in person, you know, it's perfectly reasonable at that stage for somebody not to be at the meeting but to be watching online and have their answer read out, their question read out, and an answer given in real time.
Point taken, Councillor Prater. We will tidy that up.
Okay, all right. If that addresses that one, Jenny, do you want to come in?
Yeah, there is no opportunities at any of our meetings then for a member of the public to ask a a specific question to them or to their area. It has to be related to the agenda. Is that right? That's exactly what we're saying, isn't it? Yeah.
That's
so.
Correct,
I mean,
so,
because at the moment, you see, the general public can ask a question that is not relevant to the agenda. I'm not saying I advocate it, but I just want to clear that up, because that in a way cuts down the
So when we've discussed this, Jenny, just to make sure we're all on the same page on this, when we discuss this, we have had quite a lot of debate internally about who answers the questions, how long do we have, taking the points about giving enough time for interested observers and residents to ask us questions, but also giving staff enough time to answer the detail. And sometimes these questions can be quite challenging and detailed. So you will need to draw on officer support. So there has been a discussion between us around who should address the questions, and the advice from Amandeep is around, the chairs responding to the questions. It
wouldn't have to be at every committee, though. I was just thinking maybe the opportunity sometimes perhaps at the main committee where
where we got to, Jenny, and the proposals before you today was to get us moving on this journey, if we can focus any questions from the public on matters of business to that subcommittee or committee, they'll be addressed then in the best way possible, and again through the chair, about the matters relating to that business of that committee at that particular agenda, distinct from when we're at full council, and there can be questions on all sorts of things at any particular time, so long as they're not been asked in the last 6 months. And it was a way of us trying to respond to your request to have public participation, but do so in a way that's manageable, because otherwise particularly if you want the follow-on information to help members with the business of that committee, I'd have to have quite a large array of officers.
Yeah. I accept that. I accept that. I understand, and I mean they will obviously have an opportunity at full council. Yes, I was perhaps forgetting that, but
no, that's not to be eroded at all in any way. The council full committee. This was about in addition to some specifics of a decision that was just about to be made by that committee. So it was more in that vein, Jenny. So hopefully that clarifies for members.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
I think Connor was next, and then Tim.
Oh, thanks. I was just going to sort of, for Jenny's benefit, there's currently no intention, as far as I'm aware, to change the current questions to full council. So residents who want to ask questions specific to their area or all that sort of stuff, that will continue as normal. This is just an additional method for residents to ask more specific questions around the business of the new committees.
Okay. Any other comment from anyone on that? Sorry, Tim, do you want to come in?
Yeah, just to say that I entirely agree with Jenny's concerns, but you're absolutely right with the full council questions remaining exactly as they are. This is an extension, and although it's got more limited applicability, I've got no problem with it. I think it deals with both issues. I just recalled that the one other point that I'd flagged up though was the one that Paul made was around 3 working days and 2 working days. Would it be possible to make the questions to the committees on the notice of 2 working days, i.e. by 10 a.m. on the Friday? I accept that there is an element of administration to do there, but it would just give people 24 hours longer to look at the agenda and actually form questions which are pertinent to the item on the agenda, as opposed to questions which they are shoehorning quickly onto an item on the agenda.
There is that option, or the other option is we publish the papers earlier and give ourselves more time. Because at the moment it's 5 days, isn't it? And I don't know what legal colleagues are probably rolling their eyeballs at me at the suggestion on the
I'll bet.
Can you leave it with us, Tim? Let us try and work it through for you, if that's all right. We take the point. You want as much time given to interested residents and observers and participants, and then equally, I'm trying to balance that with the demands on staff to service you. thoroughly.
We're totally understanding the demands on staff, which is why I was trying. If I'd said 10 o'clock on the Monday, I think I'd moved to unreasonable territory. I think I was hoping that giving 10 o'clock on the Friday was reasonable, but no, equally, if you want to publish 7 days in advance, 7 working days in advance, as opposed to 5 working days in advance, deals with the same problem.
All right, just let us work it through if you don't mind, members. Is that all right? Okay. Any other question about this item on the agenda? Nope. Okay, Amadee, is there anything by way of conclusion that you want to add before we move on to item 6?
No, just to thank members for their comments and feedback, and we'll take that into account. Thank you.
Great. Okay, so item 6 on the agenda is political makeup of committees, and this is not really for well, I'm hoping it's not going to stimulate any huge debate. It was really for information to help us communicate with you all about how we think it's shaping up. The calculations are the calculations, but it was just really to let you know, obviously we're doing all this work, and Gemma in particular is doing all this work in the background. And it was just an opportunity for us to share it with you as a working group. So I'm hopefully you're going to endorse and support it. Note it. Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm getting nods all round, which is
apart from Paul, who's got his hand up.
Oh, Paul.
Yes.
Sorry, in the corner of my screen. I didn't see that, Paul. My apologies.
That's okay. It's just recognising that we do have a reform member now. Whether he remains reform
we don't have a reform member now. We don't have a reform member now because he's not a group. He's an independent member who happens to be a member of Reform.
We will. I think the point is we need to make sure we make appropriate reference in our labels and descriptions of all members. And I think we've been into it fairly recently, probably since that work has been done. So we'll take that back and make sure the published final version is the right labels on it. So thank you, Paul. Anything else?
Could I just?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Susan. Could I just? Yeah. Sorry. It just picking up on Councillor Thomas's point, and I'm not sure, Councillor Thomas, if you were alluding to this, but it doesn't having the independent member now become a member of Reform doesn't change the political figures, balance figures that you have before you. So those figures that are in the pack are accurate.
It's an accurate labelling that we just need to make sure actually through everything, isn't it? Thank you, Amadee. Okay, on that basis, then I think we can move on to the next item, which is I've lost my pack now. Sorry, members, I'm all over the place. I'm flicking between screens. Right, I think we're on item 7. Is that right?
That's right. Yes.
Thank you, Gemma. So, David, you're going to give us an update on the constitution and thresholds. Are we doing that before the outside bodies? Have we got that the right way around?
It's outside bodies first.
Ah, right. Okay. Sorry, I'm looking at a draft pack. Sorry, my apologies.
Okay.
So, Michelle, you've done extensive work on this, and I am very grateful for you joining us. Do you want to take members into your slide deck and give us an update on where we've got to, and then we can take questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Hopefully you've all seen the presentation as part of your pack. So let's just see if I can share it from here. Is that working?
It is, yeah.
It's great. I can't actually see the presentation, but let me. Sorry. Okay, I've got it now. My screen has frozen on the presentation. Let me see. Sorry, Gemma, I can't seem to move my slides.
Bear with me, Michelle, and I will share it on my screen.
Thank you. Sorry. Are you able to do that, Gemma? Or...
Yeah, I'm sorry. I've just got to get it all opened up and everything. Bear with me.
The first, I'll just talk through while Gemma's doing that. The first few slides were just a recap on where we were and how we've got to where we've got to following the last meetings that we've had, and also I think the member briefing where we touched upon it that evening as well. So the first few slides are a recap, and they cover the strategic objectives, the rationale for the review. So we was looking at streamlining the number, linking explicitly to the committee system, and looking at how that dovetailed into the corporate plan, the new corporate plan, as that's being developed as well. So hopefully we'll be able to, there we go. So I think I've covered that one. And then we had a process. So we did stage 1 analysis that I brought back to you last time, starting to look at the information that we had and the gaps that we had, and how we could start linking that to the committee system. And of course, then stage 3 will be drafting with a steer from you into the constitution, and how that might play out. So if we could move to the next slide, please, Gemma, sorry. Thank you for doing that. So these are the findings that were to date, and I think we ran through a lot of these at the last meeting. So this really is just a recap. We didn't hold a lot of complete information about all of the outside bodies. Some didn't require continuing member appointments. There was no formal feedback mechanism. Members were sitting on the outside bodies in different capacities. We have a grants and partnerships database and partnerships policy, and we've thought about how they might link. And also some outside bodies have officers supporting them and some don't. So we kind of had a bit of a mixed set of information about the outside bodies. And if we could move on to the next one, please. So having taken feedback from yourselves at previous meetings and the member briefing, we have stopped and had another look at the outside bodies list and how we could streamline, how we could make it work better under the committee system, how we could link it. And we have given some consideration to a set of criteria to determine which outside bodies should be retained. And I'll go through that with you in a moment. How any new requests to form outside bodies or join an outside body is made, and who makes that decision. The communication loop feeding back into the new committee system, arrange appointments and duration of appointments, and then the indemnity insurance and training needs for members who are appointed. Thanks, Gemma. So coming on to those, the criteria that we are recommending is that we have a clear and direct link to the council's corporate plan, that there is a clear role for the member and it is an active membership. If, for example, it meets more than twice a year. Looking at new outside bodies as they come forward, if officer support is required, is there capacity to provide that? Does the outside body have a clear constitution in terms of reference and or a business plan? And finally, is it considered a partnership or a formal standard meeting with another organisation rather than an outside body? So when we come on to, in a moment, looking at the outside body list that we currently have, I have attempted to apply that criteria and also linked to the new corporate plan. And I think when we come onto that list, you'll see that, from my opinion, when we apply that, we come down from something like 31 or 32 outside bodies to 15. So that does really kind of strip back the number of outside bodies that are there. Of course, that's on the presumption that the criteria is agreed and the new corporate plan is agreed. So that piece of work would need to be conducted again once those two things were in place. We have suggested here that the request to join new outside bodies or to form a new outside body should be considered by democratic services, put into democratic services, and then approved by the chief exec and leader. So that's the recommendation that we've got there. And if we could move on, please, Gemma. We are suggesting that any member appointed to an outside body would be required to report back. And throughout this presentation, I've left the option of council or appropriate committee, because I think that's where we need a steer from yourselves today. And it would be a part of their appointment, it would be a term of their appointment, and it would be using an agreed pro forma, which would be submitted alongside other reports at a set meeting of that committee or council, depending on which way you would like us to move. We did have a go at looking at the advantages of whether the appointments are made by council or committee. These are the ones that we thought of. I'm sure yourselves being closer to this and the outside bodies and the new committee system will have more. So if the appointments were made by council, then there's an equality of opportunity, a wide range of skills, a wider pool of capacity. But obviously, the advantages of being made by the committee, that the knowledge is retained by that committee. And if it was a committee member that was being appointed, then you're reporting back into your group on that particular committee. Again, on that slide, I'm aware that you would probably have a lot of views and a lot of discussions take place as to which way you want to steer. If we could go, thanks, Gemma. We also had a chat with Kirsty, who I don't think is on the call today, and we ran through how other councils do the appointments, and a number of other councils have some presumptions in place around there's no requirement to reflect political balance. Members can nominate themselves. That would require a vote. Again, this is taking a steer from you on whether it's done by the council or a committee. If the outside body is relevant to the remit of a particular committee, there can be a presumption that a member of that committee will be appointed, again, via a vote. Appointments will cease if members are disqualified. I think that was fairly straightforward. Representatives don't hold any executive authority. I think that's how it is now in terms of being appointed to outside bodies. There's no change there. And where there is a strategic importance to the council, the presumption could be that that was a member, that a member of the Strategy and Resources Committee would be appointed, and that the appointments are for a maximum 1-year term and reviewed annually at either the council or the committee meeting, taking a steer from yourselves there. And then finally, I think we looked at the insurance, and there is currently insurance for members. I don't know that as it stands, members who are appointed to outside bodies, the role isn't always very clear, and therefore, if there is a requirement or not for indemnity or insurance, that probably isn't clear either. So I think as part of this review, we're recommending that once the appointment's made, it's clear what the role of the member is, and there can be guidance from the legal team as to their duties and the indemnity insurance information that they need. We've also suggested that a handover of information to the new member rep from the previous rep would actually be quite useful in a lot of cases. And if we can incorporate that in, that would be really valuable to the members being appointed. So that was a really quick run through because I'm conscious of time. And I think the steer really is to have the conversation around how the appointments are made, whether that kind of criteria works for you, and how you'd like to move forward if you've got any comments or questions. So shall I hand back over to you, Susan, or do you want to?
Yes, sorry, thank you very much. And thank you for taking us through all of that, Michelle. So, members, can I leave you to reflections, questions for Michelle? She's the one intimately involved in this, so we'll be able to address anything, any concerns that you've got, or questions, points of clarification. Now, Tim was first, then he just picked Jim to the post. It's Tim.
I was going to cede it. Always move 1J to the left. A, I thought it was a really good piece of work. Thank you, Mia. B, in terms of whether council or committee, I have a vague preference towards committee, but I'm not going to lose a leg for that one. I'm open to the views of others, but I think it makes more sense for it to be committee. Personally, I accept the pros and cons that you've laid out there. Did I miss the list where you said you'd come down to 15 that you think actually fit the criteria? Is that list circulatable yet? And also, can I have the 16 that, when you do it, can I have the 16 that don't make the cut as well? Because I might otherwise forget those. So it'd be useful just to look at them and go, yeah, I can see why and why not. That would be helpful. But otherwise, good piece of work. Thank you.
Shall I just pop in there, or do you want to carry on with questions? Can I just
address that one, Michelle, and then we'll take.
I thought it might have been circulated with the pack. Apologies if it wasn't. There was another document that went through, and I don't know, Gemma, if you've got that. If we could share that on the screen, just so that you can quickly see there was a table at the top of that document that kind of split the outside bodies. And I don't know if you have that, Gemma.
Sorry, yes, I've seen it. It's online. Apologies.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It wasn't part of the presentation, so it was a separate document. And I don't know whether you want to just have a quick look at that. I might be able to share it from. Do you want me to attempt to do that, Gemma?
Yeah, if you've got it in front of you. If not, I can.
Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've listed the criteria at the top, and then in this table below this is all the information, as you've probably seen, about each of the outside bodies. But in this table, I've split them if I were to apply that criteria, if that was agreed, and if the corporate plan were agreed. Again, assumptions there, because that's still that piece of work still outstanding. Then these are the committees. The language here, I apologise for this, because it isn't that those groups are no longer required. It's that I have recommended that they're no longer required as outside bodies. And for that reason, they haven't met the criteria. So they either aren't an active membership for members, they no longer require a member representative. It doesn't mean that they're no longer required as groups meeting in the district. It's just that's how the criteria has fallen. So we have a number, and I think there was still a question around Bosco and whether that is a shareholders subcommittee. I don't know if there's any update on that, but I've left that there with a question mark at the moment. And the other ones I have split into communities and environment, strategy and resources, shareholders. The ones that I think are more of a partnership or a formal meeting, so a member would still attend, but it would be more of a voluntary role rather than an appointed role. And then the ones that either don't need, are no longer requiring a member appointment or are no longer actively meeting. Does that help?
Thanks, Michelle.
Very much, thank you.
Yeah, do we want to just sorry, before I come on, I know we've got questions from other members, but just your question back to us, Michelle, about Bosco. I haven't heard anything more from members in between meetings about that. If just to recall, we are officially a 50% owner of Bosco, as I understand it, Michelle. And it was a debate about whether that should fit under the other shareholding companies and the shareholders committee. So just to remind you, we've obviously got the one extreme to the next, really. We've got Otterpool Park, Opportunitas, EKSDC and Bosco. And there was just a question in my mind about actually, should they all technically, because we are a shareholder, should they all technically fall under the shareholders committee? And I don't think we sort of resolved that last time. So it's just whether you've got any firm steer for us, and that puts that one to bed. No firm steer. If it's up to me, I would probably just keep them all together. So we know that anything that's got a shareholder that's got a formal reporting is all together. But that's for neat administration. So if there's a difference of opinion,
I would agree with that, Susan. I think it's sensible, especially perhaps when Tim would know how Bosco's operated in the past, and it may well develop a bit more in the future.
Agree with Jenny, agree with Susan. I actually think that putting it into the shareholders committee makes them sense at this stage. We hold cash in it. Its opportunity is in the grants and the opportunities it might give us, not in what it is currently doing. And also how it might sit across the UNESCO park bids. And again, the money that will move if that happens. So I think that's why A, you'd keep it, and B, it would go into the shareholders committee.
Any contrary views? Otherwise, we'll take that as a steer from you all. Great. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much for that. That tidies up that one, Michelle. Now, I think it was Jim, then Paul. Might have got it wrong way around. Am I right?
Thank you very much, Susan. Well, speaking as the current president of Bosco, I would be very disappointed if it went anywhere else other than our shareholders. So happy to agree with that. Really, just to say, I think that the appointment should be done at committee. and I think it's a fantastic piece of work, Michelle. I think it's probably long overdue, and I know how hard it was for you to get a lot of the information together, but well done. And I think the council generally benefit very much from that piece of work. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Jim. Paul.
Yes, just echoing what everybody else said. Really excellent piece of work, very easy to follow, and entirely consistent in the approach, which is great to see. I'm going to buck the trend here because I'm going to suggest that we actually recommend appointment by full council to be entirely consistent about how nominations are made right the way through. So you have a golden thread from full council right the way through to the individual representatives. I know it's a contrary view, it's my personal view. So it's just how I think that we should identify and move forward with those in the future. I know Jim's expressed a view previously about how difficult it's been to get people even to fill some of these positions. But again, I think having brought the list down to a manageable number now and link them to committees should make that a darn sight easier. So yeah, I'm not going to die in a ditch over which way it goes, but my preference would be for full council. Susan.
So just on that point, can we just try and get a steer then? We've got country views from you.
I'm about to exercise a wild 180-degree tack on this one and agree with Paul. And my wild and 180-degree tack is because of the shareholders committee, which has six subcommittee, which has 6 people on it, and more than six positions on the committees that would feed into it, the organisations which would feed into it. We can't we haven't got enough people on that subcommittee to elect to all of those positions. And
So in order to
get myself off that damned hook, Paul's answer is better than mine.
Jenny,
I would agree with that. And just to add my thanks to Michelle. I mean, I know as somebody who's served on quite a few outside bodies. I know it's not been easy to bring all the information together and be able to analyse it. So thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
But then I know what you can do.
And so, Connor, do you have a strongly held view at the moment? We're looking.
No, like I say, I was always under the sort of impression that once they no longer were appointed by the leader, they would be appointed by full council at the AGM as part of the package of appointments. So I think that's the more sensible way to go about it. Don't necessarily think it should be, in some cases it might be relevant for someone on a committee to sit on an outside body relevant to a committee. But for example, like, I don't think the people that sit on Opportunitas or Otterpool Park should be part of the shareholder committee, because they're the committee that's going to be scrutinising those outside bodies. So I think there does need to be a bit of care there in terms of we're making sure that there is that proper level of transparency with some of the committees that perhaps are a little bit more closer to the council, that need a bit of that separation, where interests need to be declared, etc. And just to say, I mean, largely agree with the list that's been put together. However, I think the Shetway board of the Armed Forces Covenant, Folkestone is a garrison town, and the whole district is linked to the military and the armed forces, quite intrinsically. So I would see the Armed Forces Covenant as being central to the Communities Committee. So I think that should for me, that would be one of the bigger ones that I would think would regularly feed into to that committee. So we know we are doing everything that we should be doing, not just statutorically in a statutory point of view as we have to, but I'd like to think we're where we can, we go above and beyond with our regards to the Armed Forces Covenant, and that would be reported into our Communities Committee quite regularly.
Yes, we will make sure that we do report in. So just in terms of the appointments, it sounds as though the majority view is for council appointments to be made by council. So we'll got thumbs up all round. So we will we'll take that in the next iteration of the work. Now I think I've lost track of Paul. Tim, were you wanting to come back in? No, have I missed anyone? Anyone else wants to come in?
I was only going to say, and I might have misheard Connor there to say about the Armed Forces Covenant Board. There isn't a local board operating at the moment, but hopefully in the future there will be. But it hasn't operated for several years.
I think we will ensure that the work of, because we do a lot actually, don't you? As a council,
absolutely.
To be fair, you've championed.
I'm talking for Jim now. Sorry.
But you do a lot, and you do a lot. So we will make sure that we report in. I'm sure Jim will ensure we do that. Okay. Is there any other question or query from Michelle? Anything else about the next steps, this work? Michelle, anything else you want to add by way of bringing this item to a conclusion?
No, just to thank everyone, really. Everyone, I have contacted a number of members to gather the information, and everyone's been really helpful at getting back to me really quickly with the information that I've asked for. So thank you to everyone who's contributed, and hopefully we can move forward with it now. Thank you.
Great piece of work. Well done, Michelle. I know at times it has been a bit of a brain teaser, hasn't it, for us? But anyway. Right, okay. I think we're on the last item, David. And sorry, I got the ordering wrong. But over to you.
Thank you, Susan. I'm going to try and share my screen, so bear with me. Hopefully that's worked.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. So I'm mindful of time, of course, but so I won't hang around with this. So in terms of an update on the Constitution, the draft Constitution, the first draft has been provided to leadership team for their review and comment, and I'm not entirely sure whether, I don't know if it has been circulated as yet. I think there's still, it's quite a chunky document, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, certainly by way of reference to what you have now. They are, quite substantial documents. So, but members will be given opportunity to have a look at that, post that review by the leadership team. But what I just wanted to sort of make you aware of, it is an ongoing piece of work, as you all appreciate, I'm sure. So in particular, the work is ongoing, or focusing on, so scheme of delegation, which is the scheme of delegation to officers, of course. And that's working on the principle of a by exception. So it's really important, therefore, that the terms of reference that we put in place for the committees interlink with that scheme of delegation. So it needs to be very clear, because the principle is that everything's delegated unless it's reserved, or if it relates to a decision where certain thresholds are met. So, of course, key decision type matters, etc. So there's work to be done on that. The budget and policy framework. So presently, I think we need the specific thing with the budget and policy framework is the procedure rules that feed into that. So it's how, because of course you'll all be fully aware of the procedure and process for developing the budget presently through the executive system, but of course that's going to be different through the committee system in terms of developing that budget and getting it to the point where it's with you at full council for consideration and hopefully approval. So I need to have discussions with senior officers about what that's going to look like. I have examples from elsewhere as to how that works, but of course it's not a one size fits all. We need to make sure that the process works for yourselves and reflects the organisation. So that's a work in progress, if you like. Financial procedure rules are also going to be subject to change, and in particular around, which is the next slide, I believe, environment type thresholds. Contract procedure rules. I haven't provided those as yet. There is a very good reason for that, and that is, I don't know if you will have heard of the Procurement Act that was due to come into force well, very shortly, but has been delayed due to systems that were needed to be in place in central government around management of procurement contracts, etc., not been ready to go. So that's been kicked on into February, and there's work going on. Certainly, my colleagues in the firm are working closely with certain other authorities, but as well as that with CIPFA around how that then translates into contract procedure rules, because there's some quite significant changes, and so there's no point in me saying to you, right, here's a draft of the contract procedure rules, when it will completely, well, not completely, but very substantively change once that legislation comes into being. And that's, I don't know if I mentioned, February next year is the go live date for that. But as I say, colleagues are working on a model, in essence, a contract procedure rules model, so we can feed into that and use that when it's ready, and tweak it appropriately. Members' allowance scheme, of course, there was a big bit of work that was done, that was discussed at the working group as well, and that needs to feed through into a settled scheme that reflects everything that's been agreed and the principles, etc. And then there's the work on the outside bodies as well, and that needs to be reflected properly, and it's useful. So thank you for the clarification around where the appointments are going to be made. That will obviously then be reflected properly in the Constitution as well. So just to move, I'm in charge of the slides, aren't I? So, yeah, it's environment, financial thresholds. So I don't know if you recall previously we had the discussions in relation to this. In particular, the environment decisions. So environment is moving around. So you have your budget heads, budget pots, and environment, as you all probably know, is where you move from one budget head into another one during the year. Now, rightfully, there needs to be certain thresholds. You can't have it. Well, you could potentially have it where you could move an entire budget into another one, but that wouldn't be good governance, of course. So there are these thresholds that we looked at previously, and I've set them out there on the slide as what's been presently agreed by the working group. But behind the scenes, I've had various meetings with a number of council officers, senior council officers, to discuss any sort of particular pinch points or concerns that they might have. And in particular, when I was speaking to the Housing and Operations Director, Andy, he was concerned about, particularly in relation to his service, that the environment thresholds might be quite restrictive. And that's in particular due to it would be a cumulative limit that applied. So it's just making you aware of this and thinking about, is there potential to sort of change? I mean, we don't have to do this now, and we don't have to go into the detail now, because it's not something that's going to be difficult to change in the document. But I think it'd be really useful if members can give some thought to this, and I think it might also be useful to hear from Andy as well at some point, and he was certainly keen to maybe attend a future group and to let you know his thoughts from an operational point of view in terms of how the thresholds potentially impact upon delivery of the service. So I'll move on from that one, but just as I say, to note, be useful to have some thought around that and discussion around that at a future time. So I've mentioned already, so I won't go into too much detail with this, the budget and policy framework procedure rules. We need to really think about the process that's adopted for development of budgets and policies, of course. Now, of course, we don't have the executive, or we won't have the executive, so the executive won't be working up and proposing the draft budget. It will be done through Strategy and Resources, who will then recommend to full council. But it's how that process works, what meetings are going to be required, when they'll be required, who's responsible for setting the time frames and et cetera, et cetera. So again, I've put an indicative version in the first draft of the constitution, but I just want to be really clear that that is purely indicative. It's simply this is, you know, one option. So we need to give some thought around that and to think about how it works. And of course, as with all these things, you know, it might be that we you know, reach an agreement as to what that process will be or the procedure rules will be, but then once it, you know, in practice it might need tweaking or changing or whatever. But so that's just to say there's some work that needs to be put into that and thought that needs to go into that too. And I think that's the extent of the slides, but of course, you know, I'm as always happy to take any questions sorry, I've got 1 minute, so apologies, but happy to take any views or questions.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you, David. So, members, queries, questions, points to return to? Tim.
Thank you. Firstly, yeah, I think all that makes reasonable sense in terms of and as discussed in terms of your environment slide. Your middle one says that it's environments between £25 and 100,000 should be discussed with the committee chair. I think you mean £25,000 and 100k.
Yes,
we've had a
apologies.
crossover like that. We've had a crossover like that before, and it's not good.
Yeah.
I can see the advantage of having a higher environment limit than £100,000. I could certainly see it within certain service areas. I don't know, but I don't know how one would easily draft that one area might be different to others. I think that if the environments that are being made by directors are subject to discussion with committee chairs and somehow just reported, then I think that environment level could be higher. If it's reported, because then that allows people to, if somebody looks at it and goes that there is contention in there, then there's potential for using the rescission process, rescission or the call-in process at that stage. But 95% of the time, people are going to look at that and go, yeah, that allows that. That makes the thing happen that needs to happen. But therefore, as long as if in that process potentially to a higher limit, there was that environment is being reported and it was then subject to those other rules, so councillors could look at it and go, no, hang on, I want to talk about that, and get enough names on the list and call that in. Would that not give an ability to under normal business 95% of the time, that would just give a higher limit, but would also mean that they're always reported into the committee, and allow that in the, I'd say, extremely unlikely event that somebody wants to have a conversation about it, it gets called back in. Whereas at the moment, it would go there above £100,000 anyway. You just short circuit most of them.
Yeah, I'd absolutely, Tim. Thank you for that. That's really helpful, and certainly, you know, one point that you made in terms of having different thresholds for different service areas. I mean, that is possible. Might get a bit complicated, but certainly is possible. And as I say, it might be sensible in relation to certain service areas. And as I say, my discussion with Andy, he was saying in particular it has an impact upon, you know, his areas that he covers. So it might be, as I say, I think if we can, well, it's not if we can, he's certainly happy to attend and have the discussion and explain that in more detail for you. We can then maybe think about that and reflect that in what we ultimately end up with in terms of those thresholds. But yeah, thank you.
Is the technique of dealing with them under, I can't remember if it's rescission or callback of public, like, does that seem practicable if it was a higher number?
Yes, I think it does. One thing I would say is around rescission in relation to environments of budget. Often there needs to be a well, the reason why you might want environment is because you need to move quickly and be able to, you know, take advantage of a particular opportunity or whatever. So, but I'm sure we can work that in, and yeah, there needs to, certainly in terms of reporting back on where environments have been made. Of course, members need to be cited on all of that. But yeah, if the environment's been made and members are not happy with it, I think we can look at applying the rescission type process. There might be some exceptions where, as I say, if a contract has been entered into and there's going to be significant issues flowing from that for the council, but I mean that in and of itself would be very much an exception, I suspect.
I would have thought that longer term contracts like that exactly are going to be exception. You're not going to have done environment in order to, in order to enter into a long term contract that you hadn't seen coming some weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's unusual.
Okay.
I can imagine a possibility. Susan is currently imagining 3 different possibilities. But again, I think it would be unusual, and hopefully it would be explicable enough that if somebody then questioned, a councillor then questioned it, the answer, there'd be a damned good reason to give for it.
Yeah. Okay. Is it
sorry, yes.
Jim or Paul?
Reflecting on how about my other examples, Tim? So sorry. Yeah, was it Jim now, and then Paul?
Yeah, thanks very much, Susan. Yeah, just a quick point on this is do we need to say something about the number of environments? Now, I know this does not happen at all in this council, but I have heard of situations where, environments are split into different environments in order to, get them through a process. So I've got no, big concerns about this. I just thought I'd flag it that the limits on environment understood, and we can talk about that. Officers are probably best placed to advise us on that. But I was just wondering whether we need to have something about the number of environments.
Yeah, the way that that's addressed presently and as is proposed is that it would be a cumulative limit. So it wouldn't matter how that was, if they were wanting to via a certain purpose and then doing it as one would take it over a threshold, but then splitting it would bring it below, that wouldn't make any difference because, as I say, it's cumulative in year. So it would still be caught. So we wouldn't need to have anything in there around restrictions around the number of environments. It's all about, we have a threshold and it's the cumulative impact of the environments as they move along. So at some point, something's potentially, well, not necessarily, because it might be that there haven't been environments that meet that threshold cumulatively, but if there are, it tips over there and then that's it. There's no more. It has to go to members. So there is that safety. Threshold? Well, presently we've put in the slides within a budget heading and across budget headings up to 25,000, not £25 as mentioned by Tim. So it's up to 25,000. I think that will very quickly be consumed by the cumulative rules. So it would need to be. I mean, you could even put additional provisions in there to say any individual environment standing on its own cannot be in excess of X amount, and then also apply a cumulative total as well. So I think that might be a good way of sort of dealing with it as well.
Sure.
I must admit, on this whole section, I have asked the team to look at sort of best or good current practice from elsewhere about what are the levels, and just so we've got a broader view about how we compare to elsewhere that have got a committee system. So Paul.
Yes, thank you. I agree with Tim actually in terms of looking at it by service area, because we already have the corporate knowledge in terms of what we do currently, and that's not going to change significantly, arguably, for those things that are I wouldn't say a matter of routine, but the things that we have to do to function currently. So we already know the number of environments and the level of environment that we make on an annual basis. So, that's something that we record and make use of. So again, I think from that information we already have, and as David has already said, talking to the various heads of function, then we'd be able to get that intelligence and make sure that we weren't putting things in place which were going to be restrictive to service delivery. So that's the only thing that I wanted to raise, really. Thank you, Susan.
All right. Yeah. Okay, any more
Can
input?
I just make one comment? I mean, I'm listening with interest really as to how this will move forward. But you know, if you went to rescission as Tim said, that's not an easy process, is it, to go through? That would be my only comment.
You have to have a certain number of signatories from the appropriate committee, and I think it's a majority. So you need 6 signatories on an email, 6 or 7, in order for a committee to call back a decision. I don't think that's I mean, it's a process, but it's not the wildest barrier I've come across for getting something rediscussed.
Yeah.
No, but as you said,
it will require cross-party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will require a majority of people on that, so it would require to be a cross-party. Genuinely, we want to have a look at this again. And actually, that's kind of right. I mean, directors are there to direct, and officers are there to make things happen to the strategy which has been set out for them. But it just does give there is, you know, there is a barrier to cross there, a threshold to cross. And it shouldn't just be as easy as Tim fancies having an argument about stuff. Because
he likes to.
that can take
When
a while.
is that not true?
Could possibly comment. So on that note, conscious that it's the 3:40. Are there any other points that members want to raise with us and David in particular on this item, or are we coming towards the end? Yeah. Okay. Well, look, thank you, David. Thank you for taking us through that, and for the next steps that we've got to do on it. I'm not sure, Gemma, whether we have another meeting in the diary yet.
We don't as yet. We will be working together in the diary. There was just one other paper that was on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
I think Amandeep was going to talk about that, but it's on page 49 of members' packs.
Sorry, Gemma. Thank you for keeping me on it. And this is the suggested allowances. Is that right?
Oh.
That's right, yes.
Okay, so Amandeep, over to you. Amandeep? We have no Amandeep. Okay. Well, I suggest if we haven't got any, let's have a look, Gemma. Let me have a look. Sorry, we're not briefed to lead the item, but let's have a look.
I have to admit, I'm looking at the papers online, and there is no item 9 online.
Is there a item? Oh, okay.
It's on the bottom of item 8, so just prior to the slides that I've just been through. You'll be able to find that information.
So it's headed up. Am I right thinking? I think I'm looking at a draft of the pack actually, so my order's slightly wrong. But is it headed up? Suggested allowances for Opportunitas Limited and Otterpool Park LLP.
Yes,
that's the one. Yeah,
is that the one?
Okay.
Right, members, have you all managed to find it? I think it is just one page with a table on it.
What page is it? Sorry.
49.
Thank you.
That's it.
Hello, Susan. I've come back. I've managed to unmute. Can everybody hear me?
Yes. Yeah, just in time. We found.
Okay.
I think members have found
lovely.
The sheet. Over to you.
Lovely. Okay, so members, I'm hoping it's self-explanatory to some extent. So what we're suggesting here, members, is that obviously if you're a director of Opportunitas or Otterpool, there is an allowance paid. And the way that we do it at the moment is that it
I can't hear what Amandeep's saying, I'm afraid.
Do you want to start again, Amandeep? It's not very clear. Do you want to just start again? Move a bit?
Yes, very happy. Can you hear me better now?
Is that any better, Paul?
Yep, I'm okay.
It's clear.
Okay, lovely.
Susan, sorry,
Okay,
can I just come in?
Yes.
Because I didn't see that on the normal agenda. So if you're going to be discussing directors' potential whatevers, then I'll declare an interest as a director of Otterpool Park LLP, and I'll withdraw from the meeting if that's okay, because I wasn't aware that was on the agenda initially.
No, and it caught me by surprise. Sorry, I haven't been on top of that. So yeah, no, totally understand, Connor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, have
Thank
a
you,
lovely
Connor.
evening.
Cheers, mate.
So let's go back now. Amandeep, try again. Okay, let's see.
Okay, I'm hoping you can hear me a bit better. So, councillors, so this is an issue about the members' allowance scheme and how to pay councillors under the new system if they're directors of Opportunitas or Otterpool. And what we do at the moment is we try and keep it simple, and there is a logic behind it. So the payments that we make at the moment are reflective of the kind of SRAs that we pay, for council duties. And that is pretty much what we are suggesting continues under the new arrangements. And members, you will have the figures in front of you in the pack.
So, Amandeep, are you asking members to give us because obviously this is a decision-making group, but it's obviously to give us a steer in terms of what we push back sorry, push back, I was distracted by my phone. The way in which we then take information and recommendations forward. Of course, all this will go to ANG first before going to council for agreement.
Yes.
So are you asking
Yes.
you've got some recommendations where you've pegged the current with your suggestion? Are you asking members for a steer about whether that feels about right and whether you're happy to endorse that as a recommendation going forward?
Yes, that's right. And Susan, what I would also like to add is that the IRP panel, I had a discussion with them about this very issue, and they felt that it was outside of their reach to say too much about it in black and white. So that's the reason why members that, obviously we want to bring it to the attention of the working group. And also, as you will read from the note, you can't, as you will agree, and as it is currently, you can't be double paid. So you will only, get paid once. So if you're a director, say, of Opportunitas and a chair of a committee, you would have to select which payment you wish to receive. You wouldn't receive two, you would only receive the one.
Okay, great. Thanks, Amandeep. Jim?
Yeah, thanks very much, Susan. Yeah, I think it would be very, very difficult for us to either increase or decrease these allowances. We certainly couldn't increase them politically. And I know that, many of the councillors that are involved do work hard in these roles. So I hand on heart, I couldn't say that we're overpaying anybody on any of this stuff. But similarly, hand on heart, I couldn't ask for an increase given the overall situation that we're in budget wise. So I'm happy with Amandeep's advice at the moment. I think it's just about right, and I'll be very, very happy to join the debate once it goes up to council.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Jenny, have you got a view?
Just all I was going to say on Otterpool, is it competitive with the market in terms of attracting, because we have outside members on that Otterpool Park board? That's my only point.
Good question. Amandeep, have you considered that when making your recommendation?
A really good question, Councillor Hollingsby. I would say the answer's probably yes. I know HR quite recently did an exercise to see whether what we are offering is at the appropriate rate, and it was found that it is. So I would say, in my opinion, the answer is yes. But of course, it's the kind of question where you will get different answers from different people.
No, that's fine. It's just, you for the board, presumably you want to get the people with the skills that you require, and that's all I'm asking, really. So thank you, Amandeep.
Yeah, but just to clarify, this is about an allowance for members, isn't it?
Yes.
So let's take that away, Jenny, and just reflect further on that, because I think, you know, it is a good point about just making sure that we can justify that as it goes through its broader next step level of.
Although I accept that point, and that it's the members' allowance that you're looking at, are other members of Otterpool Park LLP, other directors, paid a different allowance, or are they all paid a common allowance? Because I actually don't know the answer to the question. I can see Jenny's point, but actually, you know, in terms of the allowance we pay to members to be that director, that's quite a limited pool. So I don't think that there's a problem for that amount being set for that. But if one was shopping around outside for independent members, that might be a different rate card.
Yeah, you're going to test. Oh, Jim's going to come in.
Sorry, I'm just going to come in here. This is, I mean, this isn't, but you know, Jenny and Tim have got it exactly right. We recently recruited Paula Hurst, and in all honesty, we got, I think we got her on the cheap, because she lives in Folkestone. You know, she's very interested in Otterpool. It's a job that she wanted, so the money was kind of the least of the issues for her. If if Otterpool goes into the next phase and we are looking for a high profile industry figure, we will have to offer a lot more than that. And you know, but that's not a members allowance. That will be an outside recruitment thing, and we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But where we are at the moment, we've managed to squeeze through the gap, as it were. But if when we go to another phase and we have if we feel it's appropriate to have a senior industry figure on the board, or figures on the board, it's likely we're going to have to pay a lot more.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Jim. And to answer your question, it's delving into the back of my brain filing system. I think it's 10,000 that we currently pay, don't we, Jim? So in terms of where it factors as part of the recommendation, it's aligned to the recommendation, but it's not actually the same figure, Jenny. Tim, whoever asked me the question. Well, hopefully that's helpful. Okay, on that basis, is any other business on that item or anything else members want to raise? No? Okay, we will reflect. Thank you very much for the steer. We'll get another date in the diary. We've got quite a lot of things we're moving forward now, Gemma, Amandeep, in terms of training and various other things. So we will get some time in your diary when it's appropriate for us to regroup on the next stage of work. Thank you very much, and have a lovely weekend when it finally arrives.
When it finally arrives.
Andy.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.